What I'm about to say may surprise you. It might even shock you. But if you're watching this right now, then it's not random. It means this message was meant for you. Yes, chosen one, you just reversed their curse. And now, karma is waking up. And not just lightly. Not symbolically. We're talking full circle, undeniable, divine retribution. A cosmic balancing act that started the moment you walked away and refused to break. You see, as a chosen one, you've always been a magnet. Not just for admiration, but for envy. Not just for love, but for projection. People try to hex you, vex you, curse you, speak against you. They think their dark whispers in the background, their evil eyes, their manipulations will shape your destiny. But they didn't realize you were built for spiritual warfare. And not only did their curse fail, you reversed it. It boomeranged. You're not like everyone else. You're sensitive to things most people ignore. You feel energies in rooms. You notice patterns in people. And sometimes you even cried alone, asking why certain people turned against you for no reason at all. But there was a reason. They sensed your light before you even understood it yourself. Before we dive deeper, I need you to do something powerful. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment with the number 77. That's not just a number, it's a signal to the universe that you're aligned with this energy. Watch this video more than once. Put it on repeat. Let its vibration pour through your spirit like armor. Because this message is your mirror, and the more you hear it, the stronger it becomes. And I'll be honest, only true chosen ones will make it to the end of this video. The ones who aren't meant to know, they'll click away before the real secrets are revealed. But you'll stay. Because deep down, something in you already knows. Karma just stood up, and she's headed toward the ones who tried to break you. Chapter 1, the curse that couldn't catch you. They tried everything. Every tactic, every trick, every form of low vibration disguised as power. Words sharpened like knives, manipulation masked as kindness, gossip laced with poison, and silent envy that festered in dark corners of the mind. They threw it all at you like darts toward your soul, hoping one would finally strike deep enough to shatter your spirit. But what they didn't realize was that your aura wasn't just thick, it was encoded, shielded, fortified with divine encryption only the heavens understand. A firewall built from lifetimes of spiritual upgrades, ancestral prayers, and divine contracts sealed in celestial ink. You may have felt the sting. You may have cried in secret. But you never broke. Not once. Not really. Because what they aimed to destroy was never within their reach. That curse they sent? It couldn't lock onto you. Couldn't find your frequency. Because your frequency doesn't live in the realm they operate in. You vibrate in dimensions they cannot even sense. Your soul doesn't dwell in shallow waters, it swims in ancient seas guarded by spiritual beings who don't blink when evil approaches. They whisper protection codes around you, sealing your footsteps, redirecting shadows, transforming attacks into elevation. Most people think curses involve candles, chants, and dark ceremonies. But chosen one, the real curses are far more subtle. They're spoken in bitterness, packaged in polite tones. They arrive as toxic compliments, fake smiles, just checking in, messages soaked in secret competition. They don't always wear dark robes, they often dress like family, friends, or lovers. They come as emotional bait, hoping to get you to react, to doubt yourself, to dim your light. They wanted to see you fail. They watched and waited, hoping your silence meant defeat. But instead of breaking, you bloomed. Instead of collapsing, you transcended. You took every dart, every dagger, and forged them into stepping stones. You became the version of yourself they prayed would never arrive. And that's when everything started reversing. See, they underestimated the rebound effect. The law of return. The sacred law that governs all energy, what is sent must come back multiplied. They didn't read the fine print of the spiritual contract they invoked. They thought you were vulnerable, but they never considered that your vulnerability was a weapon. A frequency so high that darkness can't survive in it, it suffocates under your light. The curse didn't catch you. It got confused, lost. It hovered, unable to locate your essence because your evolution had already moved you into another spiritual address. You don't live where they tried to harm you. Emotionally, energetically, mentally, spiritually, you had already relocated. You were untraceable. And now, the mirror has cracked. The illusion is broken. The spell has shattered. And that curse? It's hunting for a new host. But this time, the universe is guiding it home. It's headed right back, not just to the sender, but through their own shadows, through their own unresolved karma, picking up steam with every mile. And when it lands, it will deliver not just what they sent you, but everything else they've ever projected in secret. Spoiler alert, karma didn't forget. It just waited for divine timing. And now, that timing is here. The curse has returned to its origin. And you? You're free, elevated, untouchable, watched by divine forces that do not lose track of their chosen ones. Chapter 2, The Echo They Never Expected. Chosen one, when you refused to retaliate, when you didn't clap back, when you held your tongue while your name was being dragged, they mistook your stillness for weakness. They assumed your silence was surrender. They thought your grace was fear. But they didn't understand the language of your spirit. Because in the spiritual realm, silence isn't submission, it's strategy. Stillness is not passivity, it's positioning. You weren't being passive. You were being precise. And while they were busy crafting chaos, stirring gossip, and projecting venom in whispers, you were aligning with forces far older, far wiser, and far more powerful than their schemes could comprehend. Forces that don't speak in revenge but move in divine reversals, realignments written in spiritual law, not ego. They tried to end your story before your real beginning. They cast doubt over your name, spoke decay over your purpose, and conjured darkness behind closed doors. They gathered in private to dismantle what was sacred in you. But what they didn't know is that energy has memory. And the energy they put out didn't just disappear into the air. It circled. It spun in orbit around your life, waiting for the right time to return. It gained weight, velocity, power. And now, that echo has returned. But it's not just whispering back, it's roaring through the very rooms they once felt safe in. Because what they sent out didn't just miss, it boomeranged. It reversed. And it came back with divine momentum. Karma isn't a myth. It's not poetic fiction. It's law. It's code. And that code never malfunctions. What they whispered in secret is being shouted from rooftops. What they tried to bury is now being resurrected with thunder. The masks they wore are melting. The manipulation is malfunctioning. The charm is ineffective. They thought they were protected by their connections, by their cleverness, by their performance. But they didn't account for the divine surveillance that sees everything. There are eyes that do not blink. Ears that hear frequency, not just language. You didn't have to expose them. Life is doing that for you. Quietly. Relentlessly. Perfectly. Because truth has a way of finding the light. It always does. And when it arrives, it never shows up empty-handed, it comes with receipts. One by one, the truth is surfacing through lost opportunities, strange delays, mental confusion, health breakdowns, and the unraveling of once untouchable reputations. The same people who threw stones are now surrounded by mirrors. And now, the very intentions they buried deep are becoming burdens they can't carry. They thought your downfall would be entertainment, a story to laugh at, a testimony to their power. But instead, your elevation has become their education. Your survival has become the sermon they can't unhear. Because every time they sent something to harm you, it fueled your rise. They didn't break you, they unintentionally built you. Every betrayal became a lesson. Every insult became a syllable in your spiritual language. Every dart they threw became another brick in your divine platform. And now, the echo of your endurance is louder than anything they've ever said. They hear your name and their stomach turns. They see your success and taste regret. Because the very frequency they tried to destroy now overshadows everything they do. Their work feels dimmer. Their light feels artificial. Their aura can't compete with yours. That's the echo they never saw coming, the sound of your survival, your growth, your soul refusing to shrink into the small space they tried to trap you in. And while they scramble, still trying to figure out why everything they touch falls apart, you're over here being upgraded. Quietly, gracefully, authentically. Your soul has become a sanctuary. Your life, a magnet for divine order. Because karma doesn't arrive in the form they expect, it arrives in forms they can't ignore. In the sudden ending of things that once came easy. In the loss of favor. In the exposure of motives. In the delay that won't lift. And now, karma is speaking their language. Loss. Confusion. Exposure. Delay. Not to punish, but to teach. Because that's what happens when curses fail and return supercharged. You didn't ask for this battle, chosen one. But you were built for it. You were born for it. You were forged in the unseen for moments like this. And now, the battlefield is clear. The truth is echoing. The mirror is upright. And your peace? It's louder than their pride. You reverse the curse without ever lifting a finger. That's not revenge. That's divine authority. That's alignment. That's what happens when the chosen stand still and let the universe answer. Chapter 3, When Heaven Took the Wheel. There comes a moment in the chosen one's life when earthly defenses are no longer needed because heaven steps in. Not because you begged for it. Not because you demanded it. But because your soul reached a level of surrender that triggered divine response. When your tears had all dried up. When your prayers started to feel like echoes. When your silence became the only thing you could offer and even your breath felt heavy. That's when heaven took the wheel. Quietly. Firmly. Completely. Without noise, without a headline, heaven simply moved in and took over. What you didn't realize at the time was what was being orchestrated behind the veil. Angelic forces were being reassigned. Ancestors were whispering your name across dimensions, pleading your cause in realms you've never seen. Divine intelligence was intercepting every dark intention before it even had the chance to pierce your field. You thought you were under attack, but in truth, you were under surveillance. Protected on all sides. Watched by eyes that never sleep. Guarded by codes embedded in your very DNA. You weren't alone in that room. You weren't alone in that heartbreak. You weren't alone when the betrayal hit. Every tear you cried became sacred documentation filed into the archives of divine justice. Because here's the spiritual truth they never grasped. When you target a chosen one, you don't just cause harm. You activate judgment. They thought they were just mocking a person, slandering a name, betraying a friend. But they weren't touching a human, they were trespassing on holy ground. You are a vessel, a frequency carrier, a portal of ancestral prayers, divine instructions, and cosmic significance. That's why things started collapsing around them. That's why confusion swept through their lives. That's why nothing they do seems to stick. They're not being punished by chance, they're being reminded of spiritual law. They weren't fighting you, they were challenging the heavens. Heaven doesn't move based on emotion. It moves on alignment. And when your spirit aligned with truth, even in your pain, even when you were too weak to speak, the heavens responded. Not with thunder, not with spectacle, but with precision. Quiet, steady, unstoppable justice. That's why people who once walked tall with arrogance are now stumbling in their own fog. That's why those who tried to curse you are now tangled in their own spiritual web. Because heaven rerouted the outcome, and you became untouchable. You didn't just survive the attack, you outlived their plans. You didn't just escape the setup, you transcended the blueprint. That's not luck. That's what happens when divine order overrides human intention. There were battles you never even knew were being fought because angels handled them while you slept. There were nights when you woke up exhausted, not knowing why, because your spirit had been warring in realms your mind couldn't access. That heaviness wasn't depression, it was spiritual weight being lifted. Layers of trauma, curses, projections cleared without your permission because heaven had claimed you. And now? Those same unseen forces aren't just shielding you, they're promoting you. Spiritually, emotionally, relationally, financially. Because protection was only one half of the equation. The other half? Recompense. Divine repayment. What was stolen from you is on its way back, with interest. What was delayed is being delivered. What was cursed is now being crowned. You didn't beg for a throne, but it's being built beneath your feet anyway. Because when heaven declares you royalty, there's no force that can rewrite that script. Because the curse didn't just reverse, it activated a spiritual chain reaction. One that even your enemies can't comprehend. All they know is that things stopped working for them. That their charm is fading. That their tricks have become transparent. That no matter how hard they try, the energy has shifted. Why? Because when heaven steps in, illusions collapse. Manipulation becomes obvious. Lies fall apart in midair. Only truth remains. You've stepped into that stage now, chosen one. That rare realm where karma is guided by angels. Where every reverse curse becomes a direct blessing. Where every closed door leads to something custom-made for your spirit. Where every weapon formed against you becomes part of the testimony of your rise. This is what it looks like when heaven takes the wheel and refuses to give it back. Chapter 4, The Boomerang Blessing. Here's what they never expected, that the very energy they used to try to break you would become your blessing. The cruel words? They sharpened your discernment. The lies? They cleared your circle. The insults? They became fuel for your clarity. The rejection? It wasn't the end, it was the doorway to your next level. And the isolation? That was the sacred cocoon where your wings were formed in silence, far from their projections. What they meant for harm became the very soil where your soul rooted itself and bloomed. What they weaponized against you was transmuted into wisdom, and what they tried to kill in you came back as divine power. They didn't realize that you were anointed with resilience and that their attacks would only activate your calling even further. Because energy never dies, it only transforms. It evolves. It realigns. Every low vibration arrow they launched became part of your cosmic momentum. Every attempt to curse you added more power to your ascension. Every attempt to isolate you forced you deeper into the presence of divine truth. They didn't just fail in their attacks, they activated your next season. What they sent didn't destroy you, it rerouted, recalibrated, and resurrected something unstoppable in you. And now, the boomerang is flying. But here's the twist, it's not bringing destruction to you. It's bringing overflow, elevation, restoration, divine compensation wrapped in sacred silence and undeniable favor. This is what happens when the chosen one remains still while storms rage. When you stayed quiet, the universe got loud on your behalf. While you bowed your head in silence, heaven stood up in your defense. You've probably noticed it already. Random breakthroughs showing up out of nowhere. Divine connections you didn't chase. Sudden clarity washing over your spirit. Paths opening that were once sealed shut. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's not random. That's the return flight of the blessing boomerang. The spiritual harvest of seed sown in tears, discipline, and devotion. You didn't force this moment. You didn't manipulate it. You just kept walking. You kept breathing. You kept believing. And now, the heavens are making good on their promise. You're in the receiving season, not because you demanded it, but because you were faithful to your assignment, even when it felt thankless. Even when it felt lonely. Even when your spirit was exhausted, but you still chose light over bitterness. They cursed the wrong one. They underestimated the sacred contract over your life. They mistook your patience for powerlessness, your silence for surrender, your humility for weakness. And now, everything they sent has reversed mid-air, transformed into divine reward. That energy was never meant for you, and it knew it. It dated. It shifted. And now it blesses the very one they tried to break. You didn't reverse the curse with rituals or revenge. You reversed it through alignment, through obedience, through forgiveness, by loving when it hurt, by trusting when it made no sense, by remaining soft in a world that demanded hardness. That's real power. That's sacred resistance. That's divine intelligence in motion. And while they sit and wait, still convinced your fall is around the corner, you're being escorted into realms they'll never touch. While they continue watching your silence with suspicion, you're being whispered about in corridors of divine favor. Your name is being written into spaces their curses could never reach. Because the boomerang doesn't just return the curse, it rewrites the story. It turns the rejected into the remembered, the overlooked into the overqualified, the mocked into the masterful. This is your moment, your rise, your sacred reversal. Not because you fought for it, but because you endured long enough for it to find you. This isn't revenge. This isn't spite. This is resonance. This is the natural response to vibrating higher, even when it cost you friends, comfort, and temporary peace. You stayed loyal to your light. You chose integrity over retaliation. And now, that light is making noise. That's what they'll never understand. That's why their curses failed. Because you never needed to fight back. You were the fight. You are the light. And now, the boomerang blessing has returned with your name on every ripple. Chapter 5, The Unfolding of Their Karma. Chosen one, it's happening now. One by one. Quietly, but undeniably. The energy they released is finding its way home, not with drama, but with divine choreography. Their karma is unfolding, not in rage, not in fire, but in surgical precision. Precise, timed, customized to each action, each word, each hidden intention. The things they did in secret, now unraveling in public. The lies they spread with ease, now tightening around them like snares. The fake support, the quiet jealousy, the sabotage disguised as advice, it's all coming due. Every action left a fingerprint. And the universe? It keeps flawless records. Nothing was missed. Nothing was overlooked. Not one sigh. Not one tear. Not one act of cruelty dismissed as just a moment. It all counted. Every drop of malice planted a seed they now must harvest. They wanted you to fall, to lose hope, to crumble under pressure. They fed off the idea of your collapse. Some even smiled through their teeth while praying for your downfall. But you didn't fall, you transmuted. You alchemized the pain. You turned betrayal into elevation. You turned heartbreak into healing. You glowed up, not just on the outside, but on a soul level. And now, your glow has become revelation. Your light is exposing every shadow they tried to hide in. That's the divine power of reversal. You didn't just survive a curse, you reversed it with your alignment. You activated the mirror. And that mirror? It doesn't distort. It doesn't sugarcoat. It reflects the truth, unfiltered and relentless. The image they now see, it's their own doing. The energy they projected, now living with them. Not beside them. Not around them. In them. Look closely and you'll notice it. The ones who wronged you, they're dimmer now. Weighed down. Heavy. Exhausted from battles they can't explain. Their confidence is shaky. Their influence slipping. Their favor fading. The opportunities that once came easily now vanish without reason. Why? Because karma doesn't always arrive in thunder, it often comes in the form of slow erosion. It takes the mask off, grain by grain, until there's nothing left but what's true. And oh, the poetic justice. The mouths that mocked you, now silent. The hands that tried to block you, now paralyzed by their own guilt. The eyes that looked down on you with contempt, now avoid you, unable to handle the light. You are the walking proof. Proof that curses return to sender. That shadows don't last. That divine truth can't be buried forever. You are the evidence that energy doesn't die, it transfers, returns, corrects. And now, it's correcting everything they put out. In real time. But here's the beautiful part, you didn't retaliate. You didn't wish harm. You didn't stoop to their level. You didn't get even, you got elevated. You chose grace when you could have chosen bitterness. You chose healing when revenge was easier. You chose stillness when chaos called your name. And because of that, the universe is now choosing you. Over and over again. You're being placed in rooms you never applied to. Being mentioned in conversations you weren't even invited to. Favor is finding you, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. You moved with integrity. You stayed faithful when it would have been easier to quit. And now, nothing they did can block what's meant for you. No curse, no lie, no delay can stand in the way of this divine momentum. This is your reaping season. The seeds you planted in silence are now erupting in visible harvest. And their karma? It's not done yet. It's still unfolding. The clock is still ticking. Because karmic balance doesn't rush, it reveals. One situation at a time. One misstep at a time. Until the full picture is undeniable. You were the test. And they failed. Not because you exposed them, but because they exposed themselves. You triggered something in their spirit, something unresolved, something jealous, something dark. And instead of healing, they chose projection. Instead of growth, they chose gossip. Instead of celebrating you, they competed with what they could never understand. But you passed. You stayed centered. You walked with purpose. You rose with humility. And now, the universe is announcing your name in dimensions they can't reach. So let the unfolding continue. Let karma finish its masterpiece. Because one thing's for sure, nothing will stop it now. Chapter 6, The Collapse They Can't Explain. It's quiet, isn't it? Too quiet. The same voices that once vibrated with sarcasm and shade, the whispers behind your back, the snickers in private circles, the passive-aggressive posts cloaked in spiritual language, have all fallen silent. The ones who used to mock your growth, your struggles, your journey, they're nowhere to be found now. The energy has shifted. The atmosphere around you has changed. Why? Because their world is collapsing and they can't figure out why. But you know, chosen one, you know exactly why. What's unfolding now isn't chance. It's not unfortunate coincidence. It's not just another tough season. No, this is energetic debt maturing. The karmic invoice has arrived, stamped and sealed, and there's no dodging it. They tried to outrun it. They distracted themselves with success, social performance, relationships, and false confidence, but the divine clock never stopped ticking. When they tried to sabotage you, it wasn't just a petty move, it was a cosmic violation. A disruption in the spiritual field. Because you weren't just anyone. You were, and still are, anointed. Carriers of prophecy cannot be toyed with without consequences. You weren't just walking with potential. You were carrying legacy. Healing bloodlines. Breaking generational chains. You were a sacred assignment wrapped in human form. So when they launched their envy, their projections, their secret curses toward you, they unknowingly placed themselves in direct opposition to divine will. That's not just dangerous, it's fatal to their illusion of control. And now, as you move through life with a calmness they don't recognize, they're spiraling into confusion they can't name. Their businesses stall with no logical reason. Their relationships fracture under invisible pressure. Their opportunities vanish before they can even reach for them. And the haunting part? There's no clear source. No one to blame. No sabotage they can see. But it's there. It's deep. It's real. The collapse didn't begin with a visible act. It began the moment they chose malice over alignment. The moment they rejected grace. The moment they touched what heaven had covered. They can't explain what's happening, but they feel it. Something's off. Their energy is heavy. Their plans don't work. They light candles, write affirmations, try new routines, but none of it sticks. That's because this is spiritual damage. It's not a surface-level glitch, it's a soul-level backlash. The intention behind their actions corrupted their own frequency. And now, everything they built on falsehood is crumbling in real time. The curses they aimed at you? They missed. Worse, they ricocheted. The rumors they whispered? Now defined them. The lies they told became the limitations they now live in. The energy they sent in shadows is now orbiting them in daylight. It's visible. It's loud. It's unrelenting. They've entered a karmic loop, and there's no fast-forward button. Not because you cursed them, not because you wished harm, but because the universe honors sacred balance. And when a chosen one is wronged, the scales tip automatically. Divine justice doesn't need your permission to activate. It's already written into the order of things. And here's what makes it even more tragic: you were the last mercy they had. Your presence in their life was a covering. Even when they mistreated you, your love buffered their karma. Your prayers held off storms they never knew were coming. You were the intercession they never asked for, but desperately needed. And when they betrayed you, that covering lifted. That grace evaporated. That divine hedge broke open, and now they're exposed. Spiritually vulnerable. Unshielded. Unprotected. Now they feel it. The cold. The weight. The silence from heaven. The delay. The loss of favor. The confusion. The disconnection. The misalignment. All because they rejected the light sent to bless them. Let them sit in it. Don't interfere. This isn't vengeance, it's revelation. A sacred unveiling. The exposure of every secret they thought would stay hidden. Because the universe doesn't need microphones to record energy. Every thought, every motive, every dark prayer was noted. And now, the playback has begun. With interest. With layers. With cosmic clarity. They can't sleep. Can't manifest. Can't manipulate the outcome. Every door they try to push through closes. Every attempt to reclaim control falls flat. Because what they tried to destroy is now ascending. And their foundation? It's cracking from underneath them. They'll tell others they're going through something. They'll seek sympathy without context. Some will even reach back out, masking guilt as reconciliation. But remember this, chosen one, you are not required to reopen doors to people who used yours as a target. You can forgive without forgetting. You can release without reattaching. You can love from a safe, protected distance. Wish them healing, but don't take on the weight of their collapse. It's not your burden. It's their mirror. And it's only just begun. Chapter 7, Your rise was the prophecy they feared. From the beginning, they felt it. They couldn't name it, couldn't define it, but it stirred something inside them the moment you entered the room. Something about you disrupted their comfort. Something in your silence exposed their noise. They didn't know the details, but they sensed the depth. Your presence was a vibration they weren't ready to confront. It mirrored what they had buried in themselves, unhealed wounds, unspoken dreams, fears they never wanted to admit existed. Even before you found your voice, before you stepped into your power, before you truly knew who you were, your presence was prophetic. You didn't have to say it out loud, because your spirit was already speaking. I was sent here to shift timelines. I was sent to break patterns. I was sent to change everything. And that's exactly why they targeted you. Not because you were flawed or weak or didn't belong, but because you were the threat they hoped would never wake up. They feared your rise. They feared what you'd unlock if you ever looked in the mirror and saw yourself clearly. Because if you ever healed, if you ever reclaimed your identity, peeled off the masks, and stood in your raw, divine truth, you wouldn't just rise. You'd undo the lies they built their lives on. If you ever stopped shrinking, if you ever stopped people-pleasing, if you ever stopped asking for permission to exist, you'd become unstoppable. And now, that fear they carried has come to pass. You reversed the curse. You broke the spell. You climbed out of the pit they pushed you into. You outgrew the cage they tried to weld shut with gossip, manipulation, jealousy, and deceit. You became the version of yourself they swore you never would. And now, your rise is the prophecy they feared, made flesh. They tried to erase your name from rooms they didn't want you to reach. They spoke against your path in places your feet hadn't even touched yet. They tried to slow your steps by shaking your confidence and dimming your joy. But all they did was speed up your timeline. All they did was accelerate your alignment. Because pain has a way of forcing transformation. Every attempt to break you only purified you. Every betrayal only opened another level of discernment. Every rejection was a divine redirection. In truth, they didn't stop your rise, they sponsored it. Unknowingly, they became the fire that refined you, the resistance that built your strength. They became the lesson and the proof of just how unshakable your calling truly is. And now, your glow has changed. It's not just success. It's not just aesthetics. It's not about material gain. It's spiritual weight. When you walk in a room, people feel it. When you speak, your voice carries frequency. When you're silent, the silence speaks for you. It becomes scripture. It becomes a reckoning. That's what being chosen does. It redefines reality. You no longer owe anyone an explanation. Your evolution is the explanation. Your elevation is the receipt. You don't need to defend your process when your results are preaching the sermon. Your existence is the evidence. And here's what really hits them the hardest: you don't hate them. You're not vengeful. You're not obsessed with seeing them fall. You're not wasting your time tracking their karma. You're not trying to get even. You've already won. You've healed. You've moved on. You've transcended the battlefield. That's what separates you. That's why the crown fits. You walk with fire and grace, power and mercy, truth and compassion. But let's be clear, you also walk with boundaries. You've learned. You've seen what happens when you trust the wrong hands with sacred parts of you. You'll never shrink again. Never overextend again. Never re-enter cages you were destined to break. Your rise comes with discernment now. You don't just shine, you protect your light. And the best part? This is only the beginning. This is just the first wave. The divine hasn't even finished blessing you yet. What's coming next will feel like heaven broke open its vault with your name etched on every door. Because it has. Watch what unfolds next. Watch the faces of those who pretended they never doubted you now start to orbit your glow. Watch who suddenly remembers your name when favor starts calling it. But don't fold. Don't flinch. Don't apologize. You earned this. You paid for this elevation in full with your silence, your tears, your loyalty, your truth. They tried to curse you into silence. Instead, you became the prophecy they feared. And now, the world is about to witness what happens when a chosen one walks, not timidly, but in their full, unleashed power. Not just rising, but reigning. Chosen one, you didn't just survive what was sent to break you, you reversed it. You turned the curse into clarity, the betrayal into breakthrough, the silence into strength. And now, karma is moving, justice is unfolding, and your rise cannot be stopped. If this message reached your spirit, it wasn't by accident. You were meant to see this. So send your signal, like this video, subscribe, and comment 77 to align your energy with the divine flow. Watch it again to amplify the vibration. Let the universe know you're awake, you're protected, and you're rising. Until next time, walk like the curse missed you, because it did. And now karma is knocking on their door.